Okay guys, welcome back. Mr. Balker again here for Career Exploration. I'm going to go over the next chapter that we're going to do in the second unit. It is chapter 2, and it's specifically talking about government, law, and public safety careers. What are government, law, and public safety? My cameraman, he's a little shaky today. Don't worry about it. He's fine. He tripped. Back to that. What are these types of careers? Well, they're broad. As I kind of talked about a little bit in our last lesson, police officer. Well, there's a million types of police officers, right? There's a detective. There's a cop that's out writing tickets. There's a parking policeman, right? There's people who work at the school specifically, right? You've seen them. There's people that work at prisons, right? Correction officers. Those are all types of police, right? But there's a bunch of other options too. And the same thing is true when it comes to armed forces and national security type things. So in the armed forces, we've got these major branches and a new one that we're kind of working on right now. Obviously our current president created the Space Force, but that's not listed on here because it's a little bit new. But what we've got right now is Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, and Coast Guard. I think you guys know what these various branches are, but if you don't, let me give you, and look, I have a tremendous amount of respect for our military, so if I get something wrong, it is an omission of ignorance, not an omission of intent. The Army is, by and large, ground troops. People on the dirt doing stuff, okay? Tanks, etc. The Air Force, rather simply named because they're in the air. They fly airplanes, bombers, fighters, drones, etc. Third, the Marines, a very complicated branch of the military. The Marines, statistically, are the first guys into the situation. They're also the last guys out of the situation. In my experience, all the Marines I've ever known are the guys that really wanted to be in the middle of something, okay? Marines is a fantastic organization. It is a bit more intense perhaps than some of the others, especially when it comes to physicality. The Navy. The Navy is tricky because the Navy also has airplanes because we have aircraft carriers and such. And so the Navy does kind of a mixed bag of things. But the Navy, by and large, boats, right? Aircraft carriers, battleships, destroyers, cruisers, etc., etc., submarines. I've had two very good friends that have served on submarines, and they say it was miserable, but crazy interesting. The reason they say it was miserable is you spend a whole bunch of time underwater, and it's not like going snorkeling. You're inside a big metal tube underwater, and you sort of don't see the light of the day for weeks at a time, at the very least. The Coast Guard. Coast Guard also, boats, but what the Coast Guard is doing is a little bit different. The Coast Guard is not really defense in the sense of fighting off big attackers, although they do have, some weaponry and such. By and large, the Coast Guard is there to protect people around the coast. If you are Mr. Fat Stacks of Cash and you've got a big expensive yacht, but you don't know what you're doing, you take it out in a storm and try to sink it, Coast Guard's coming to save you. They're not going to send the Navy after you unless you're real far away. By and large, it's going to the Coast Guard. Those are the types of our military. Now, outside of direct military service, we also have national security careers. National security is the idea of protecting our country within our country usually. There are spies and such that are a bit outside of it, but by and large, these things tend to exist inside, okay? And what types of things we've got? National security advisors. They say submarine officers here. That's kind of a tricky one because submarines are part of the Navy, but the officers that are deploying them and managing them are sort of national security because we don't even know, that's not true. You and I don't know where they're at, but I can assure you, these guys know where they're at, and there's a bunch of them, and they're very, very well hidden. Intelligence analysts. You know what a cryptographer is. They break down codes to figure out what somebody was saying in a hidden message. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, and the U.S. Air Force, somehow also part of the national security. I will argue that yes, this is definitely part of the national security because these are the people in the armed forces. If somebody comes to America looking for a fight, they got to get through all those cats first. They're just going to show up here, and we're not going to be, unaware of it. So that is what these types of careers are. These careers take a very certain skill set, okay? And I think that the instruction here did a really good job, okay? People in national security careers must be able to follow orders. I personally had two choices when I was getting ready to go to college. I was either going to join the Marines, and I'd already filled out my stuff, and I just had to go down there and sign a few things, and I was off. Or I was going to go to college. And I think it was probably for the best, for me certainly, and probably for the people who had to deal with my extremely stubborn self at the Marines, that I did not go to the Marines. Because at that point in my life, I was anything but good at taking any kind of order. I was very, very stubborn. And it wouldn't have gone well for me. I'm sure they would win. The Marines are in no danger of folding over some 18-year-old kid because he thinks he's tough. But important thing, you have to be able to follow orders. If you are somebody who has an absolute distrust and dislike of authority, these are going to be tough jobs for you. Other skills differ on the job. I think this is a funny statement. A tank driver needs to have good map reading skills. Yeah, no joke, because you don't want to drive your tank right off of a ravine, and it's hard to see out of a tank. It's not like your car where you're looking out the windows. They don't have any windows really, narrow little slits. A bomb specialist would have to pay attention to details. Correct, like in movies. Which wire do I cut? The blue one. Cut the red one. What the heck? I just said the blue one. Boom. Details. Certainly, very, very important. U.S. Army slogan is be all you can be. For some people, the military offers a chance for education, job training, and self-discipline. I want to talk about this for just a bit because our military does have a really good benefit in that they will pay for an education after your service. There is two different mindsets in the military. One, I'm going to go to the military and I'm going to get all the skills that I need to have a successful career. That's hard to say, right? If you go into the military and your job that you get trained for is to load bombs underneath the wing of an F-16 or an F-18 or whatever the heck fighter we happen to be using at that point in time, and then you go into public service later, we don't have those plans. So your skill that you've developed, not that applicable. You will probably be strong and you will probably have good mechanical understanding of things, but that exact job doesn't really exist in regular civilian life. So you want to be cautious going into it with a mindset of, well, yeah, I'm just going to get all the skills that I need. I can just go to the real. No, hard to say. If you do choose this path down the road, one piece of advice I will give you: try to pick a job that has a correlation to a job in regular life, unless you're going to do life in the military, which there's nothing wrong with that. I've got a good friend. His name's John, who has been in the U.S. Navy since we were right out of high school, right? So I was going to go to the Marines. John joined the Navy. I'm 43. John just retired. One of the cool things about the military is that after a certain period of time of service, you get a pretty good retirement program. And so John's out hanging out with his kids and going on road trips, and he's not rich, but he's sure happy. And he also learned a lot of discipline. Something to think about. Okay, so that's the military stuff. We're going to go to the next thing, planning and development. The next thing they're talking about in planning and development is building stuff within the city, okay? If you want to build a shopping mall, obviously you can't go build a shopping mall. I don't care how good you think you are, look at a shopping mall. They're massive. Think about all the little intricacies that go into a shopping mall, okay? We've got two. One is pretty well dead in this town, but the other one over at Woodland Hills is doing okay. But let's think about when that thing was put in. Could you imagine how much stuff you'd had to have done to get this thing put in? You had to know the traffic patterns, ways in, ways out. You had to handle all of the water in and out. You had to make sure you had enough electricity to supply all of these buildings. You had to make sure that when Christmas time came, that the parking lots were going to have enough spaces to accommodate those people, but also you couldn't make the parking lot so big there's a big giant empty mess. You had to stage restaurants around the outside of it so that you could make use of people in the area, like, hey, I'm at the mall, maybe I'll stop you. Like, all of these things go into planning. It's honestly a super cool career. One of the things that I learned a while ago in one of my other jobs is acquisition of real estate for commercial developments is an art form. If you look at where Starbucks are built, there is probably not a company who is better at picking a spot to put a location. Every Starbucks, and I am aware of the joke that there's a Starbucks across the street from a Starbucks. I know of places where it's absolutely true. When I lived in Denver, there was a street with a Starbucks, and right across the street, inside the King Soopers, there's a Starbucks. Why? Because they knew they needed both. They got people going both ways on the road, and they knew that people are going to be in the grocery store no matter what, and they're just lighting it up on both of them. That company is not doing badly. In the middle of this recession, with very generous benefits, Starbucks is still doing okay. Getting off topic, back to the subject of planning. Why is that important? Planning is a cool job, and there's a lot of various things that go into it, right? The city planner, the census clerk. What the census clerk does is it looks at population trends and needs, okay? If you've got a population of people that happen to like a particular food group, okay? Let's say, for example, that Tulsa had a neighborhood that was developing, and this neighborhood was by and large Burmese, and more Burmese people are moving in and moving in and moving in. And then you get a business permit for somebody who wants to build a Burmese restaurant in that area. You know it's going to be successful, and you want them there. You want to fill the space. By the converse, if you get a business application for something and you know that it's going to be a dismal failure because you don't have the population data to support it, you might counsel and coach that person so that you don't have a business open and then just fold up overnight. It looks bad. You don't want your city to look like it's unstable and that we can't keep businesses here. So that's what a census clerk does. The other one that they've got listed here is the federal aid coordinator. What the federal aid coordinator does is they work with the federal government, right, the United States government, not the state government, to help fund things that we think we need help with. So what I mean by that is if you have a big project that you want to get done, the federal government sometimes will have money for you to help offset the cost of building something. A big thing you see in that right now is infrastructure, right? If you want to widen I-44, well, that's a federal road. And the federal government will give you some money to help pay for some of that road. That's a good thing. You want that because you want to offset that cost as much as you can. That's what that job is. Last bit here, have you noticed that some areas of your town have lots of houses while other parts might have a bunch of stores? Different parts of town are often zoned or assigned to different function. This helps keep people in town happy. Many people want to live in quiet areas without a lot of traffic or businesses. Many businesses don't want to be on quiet streets because no one would find them. By zoning them differently, the town is able to give more people what they want. That is stated awkwardly, but pretty well correct. Here's what they really mean. Neighborhoods need to have things that are going to support the neighborhood. You will oftentimes notice at the edge of a neighborhood, you'll have things that are small and convenient. Maybe a Walgreens, maybe a gas station, right? Maybe a Starbucks. These are neighborhood organizations. You're not going to see, generally speaking, a gigantic office complex or a hospital in a quiet suburban road. It doesn't make sense to have it there for two reasons. The hospital or the office complex isn't going to do well because nobody wants to be there, right? What do the office workers want to do as soon as it's lunch? Go get lunch. There's nothing else around. What are they going to eat? That's why you tend to see things grouped together. A good example of that is I live out there in the south part of town where all those car dealerships are, right? If you go down Memorial between, what is it? I guess it's all the way down like 87th now, all the way up to 101st, it's 1 million car lots. Why are they all together? The city wanted to keep them together. The city zoned it that way, recruited it that way, because that was an easily accessible place where you can get big trucks in to unload vehicles and load vehicles and take them away. You can confine all of the traffic of the car lots to that area. It fosters competition, and it also makes it where it's kind of a business center where customers want to go because it's all in one little area. I hope that makes sense. You see the same thing with retail districts, right? Look at the new Tulsa Hills thing. If you guys haven't been over there, that's a well-planned commercial zone. If you had all those stores in your backyard, two things. One, you'd probably hate it because it'd be a zoo with a million cars if it was successful. Or two, it wouldn't be successful, nobody would be there, and they'd all go out of business. That's what city planners do. So again, this unit covers that aspect of things and the military. I hope that you enjoyed reading it. Make sure that you're paying attention to the special things that are in blue, as well as some of the things that I said, so that you can do well on your test. Thank you so much, and I will see you for the next video, you guys.